Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult, video number 403. What is occultism? Some people have, I think, the wrong idea about what the occult actually pertains to. It's all about experimentalism and finding knowledge and things like that. When we talk about magic, for example, let's take that as the first example. When we're talking about incantations and spells and prayers and things like that, what humans do is they experiment with them. If it does not work, it is thrown out. If it does work, it is retained. This is, by the way, how religion formed in the first place. Sometimes you can get it wrong. I use the example of Grog, the caveman. Grog goes out hunting and doesn't catch anything. The next day his wife pisses him off, and so he probably, bashes her over the head with a wooden club. And he's angry, so he punches a tree and he goes out, he gets a mammoth. Now he drags that meat back. His wife is all of a sudden happy. He's like, interesting. Next day, his wife is pissy at him again. He punches the tree again. This time he gets a saber-toothed tiger. Brings that back, wife is happy again. Fourth day, he goes out. Wife's not mad at him. She's eating saber-toothed tiger meat. She's perfectly happy. He does not punch the tree. He does not get any meat. This enrages his wife. And that cycle completes, and in Grog's mind, at some point he begins to associate punching the tree with getting game. Eventually you create a proto-religion as a result of this. Now this is a rather flippant example, and I do genuinely believe in magic. I do genuinely believe in spiritual things. Not religious, I'm apatheistic, but spiritual things, things that are super mundane, I do actually believe in. I genuinely do. Let's look at medicine and chemistry and things like that. Alchemy is a form of magic. It's overlapped with incantations and rituals and things like that. It's also a form of chemistry. It's also a form of charlatanism. I've pointed that out before. Like, you could precipitate gold, supposedly. But what was really happening is you'd take a small amount of gold and you'd put it in a wooden staff, which had been hollowed out at the bottom, and you seal it with wax at the bottom. And then you start up your cauldron, and, the prince or king or whatever is watching you with rapt attention. And you say, I'm going to precipitate these contents, and it's just random shit that you're putting in there. You're just cooking it. The wax melts, and the gold falls to the bottom. And then you strain it out, and you say, look, I just created gold. See what I can do. Oh, well, let me put you up in the top of the tower, I'm going to give you free housing and a bunch of money. Just keep making me gold. And then, of course, you're just taking small amounts of gold and, sort of punting it down the road and saying, well, I'm still experimenting. It might take a while. Here's the next batch. It's just a little handful of gold or something, or silver, or whatever you happen to be precipitating. But it's also proto-chemistry. When we look at the history of medicine, what is medicine but the synthesization of organic substances? You basically have 3 periods in medicine. Well, technically 4. The first period is just ritualism, saying prayers. You'd go to the hospital, as you would very, very roughly call it. Apparently, in ancient Greece, to try to heal complaints, they would make plaster casts of the afflicted body part, and they would leave it at the temple. And the whole idea was that could be blessed, and then hopefully you achieved relief. And most of the time it was a placebo effect, so that's not necessarily fully occult in the general sense. The next period is the sawbones period. This is the period where they're giving people arsenic and crazy shit like that. They're giving them nux vomica, arsenic, lead tinctures and stuff. This ties in with alchemy. Hollandus wrote a work on Saturn. I created an edition of this, by the way, available on my books blog, link in the description. And it was fascinating, actually, reading that work. Could have had some topical effect. I'm sure that it did cause an actual effect, and it's not clear whether he's actually talking about literal lead or antimonial silver. It's not 100% clear based on the symptomology that is discussed, sweating and so forth. That would indicate lead. But it appears he's talking about antimonial silver, actually. But injecting it into a wound would destroy certain microbes, so, it might poison you in the process, so, it was a little bit better. Then we have the era of organic medicine. and the first attempt to really standardize it. You have the rise of homeopathy, you have the rise of other associated medical sort of orders and systems, and they're trying to standardize things, and it gets a little bit better. Instead of giving you arsenic, they gave you datura instead. Well, it's probably less deadly, you know, people, and now we're in the inorganic medicine period. Now we've got the pharmaceutical period in which medicine tends to be high technology, electronics, and extreme standardization, and everything's made in a laboratory. But the original medicinal systems, what were they? They were spiritual. And it continued to overlap with that for a long time. Ed did another work called Hohmann's Powwows. And it's from the early 1800s, I think it's from 1812 if I remember correctly, or thereabouts, 1820, somewhere around there. And it mixes herbal things, herbal medicine and things like that. This is proto-organic chemistry, by the way, with prayers and incantations and little tips and tricks and things like that. These bric-a-brac works were very common from roughly the middle of the 1700s to the middle of the 1800s, by the way. You've got the Book of Knowledge. That would have been read by some of the goddamn founders. That was astrological lore, again, the tips and tricks and stuff like that, divination, up through the Petit Albert. That was a famous work from the middle of the 19th century, actually from France. And again, it mixes proto-chemistry / alchemy with organic sort of medicinal practices, as well as incantations and then ritualism, talismans and stuff like that. And so they're all mixed together. All of these things form the field of the occult. I also subjugate to the occult cryptids, because again, you're trying to find the truth of, does this thing actually exist? Once you have found that it does or does not exist, it enters the realm of biology and things like that, but it's still tied together. They're all connected. I would tie in UFOs, arguably. Some people believe that they're angels or demons or something like that. Well, in that sense, if that's what you believe and you're searching for the truth of the matter, technically speaking, it's occultism. The occultism is not just witchy stuff. It's not just straight up magic, like drawing a circle on the floor and then summoning a demon or something like that. That's only one very small component of it. I practice magic. I also look into cryptids. For instance, I believe that it's possible that there is a Bigfoot population, Sasquatch, Yetis, things like that. I believe it's possible. Loch Ness Monster, a little bit less so, but it's good for tourism, so I'll give it a pass. Same with Champ. Champ is probably just misidentified giant sturgeon that happened to be hybrids with sea sturgeon from back when it was connected to the ocean, or something like that. Very interesting topics. Also, the occult is fun. These topics are interesting. Ghost hunting, for example. I don't believe in ghost hunting in the modern sense. Like when you watch reality shows, so-called, about ghosts, and they have those little boxes that beep and stuff like that. That's bullshit, basically. If ghosts are anything, they're a remnant energy. I don't think that your little REM box is going to be able to pick up on that etherealism or something like that. And I don't think that if you go into a 400-year-old German castle and you're speaking English, that you're going to be able to communicate very well with the ghosts. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? That's the only other thing I would point out. When we're talking about the occult, the paranormal in general, the supramundane, you have to use a little bit of common sense. Some things are perfectly plausible, some things observably do work, but then there's a lot of charlatanism and fucking bullshit. That's about all. Peace out.